Okay, that should be me. Is that working? Yes. That sound really loud, or is that just me? We'll lower that a little bit. Okay. Well, that's maxing. That's there. That's better. Okay, so we will see how this goes. Not too bad. Not like it's super dark in my room or anything. Hello again. Okay, so what I've been working on the last couple of days is basically making the project a little bit more robust. So now when you create a new task, not only do we get the feature, the actual reference tag available to us, so we can copy that to our clipboard, use that for our branching, etc. But when you create a task now, it's created in the backlog state, and you can only move it to ready for development. Ready for development is the signal, hey, you can move it into a sprint, because you also can't move it into a sprint until it's out of the backlog, right? So once we move it to ready for development, this becomes available. We can now move this out into a sprint if we want to. Save that. And now that will actually, sample task in backlog state will disappear from this board. Got to clean that up eventually. But now I can go to sprint 1 and sample task in backlog state should appear here, right? So that's awesome. I can go in here, I can add an estimate. I can assign that to Utterly Butterly and save that, and that'll be assigned to them. But now if I move this again to backlog, it should remove the sprint from it and disappear from here. So now it should reappear in my backlog, which you probably won't do right now because the sprint is a filter there. No, sprint is actually attached to it, so it won't show things that are already attached to sprints. So what I'll do here on this side of things is I'll say clear the context. I'm going to do Claude on the side. When we remove when a card that is in development state, in progress, or complete. No, you can't move it from complete. We're gonna have to prevent that. In progress. Move. Actually, it can do, because in verification you can identify actually we're missing a bunch of stuff. Let's move it back to the backlog and update it and say no, we're not done with this yet, right? Or complete state. Is moved to backlog. Server side, we remove the sprint from it. Allow the, what's it called, optimistic. We should remove the sprint so the card appears in the backlog. The development backlog again. So yeah, it should show that. So now, again, complete wouldn't show here eventually. Complete happens because when we complete, the sprint is removed from everything. But this would ultimately not land in here either. So, ready for development or backlog should only be the two states the statuses we filter out here. Also, the word state and status, phase, etc., is something I need to align upon. From a initiative perspective, there's a phase because these are phases of the initiative. From the deliverable perspective, these are states because it can only be in a state at once, but it can be transitioned between them, whereas a phase moves forward in the way I'm using it. Today as well, I had to remove mass transit, which was not fun, but it got done in about an hour. I'm just testing, um, the fallout of that now, making sure things are still behaving overall well. Looks like there's some failing tests there. The fact that I went red immediately tells me there's something failing in here. Oh no, I'm doing okay. There we go. So all the tests are passing, which is good. Thing is rattling in my computer. That's not a good thing. um, okay, so yeah, waiting for Claude there. And it's hard because I can make Claude on the client side do quite a lot, right? I can make it behave a lot, but I've got to make sure that that lines up with the backend behavior. And one of the things I hit in this case was when I update a task. So update task, I just apply update, right? And this apply update is actually kind of a pipeline, right? Pipeline is probably not the right word because it can't bail out on it. It's more the actions, right? So these are the actions. Let's go with that. So this basically just goes through them and aggregates the results together. And if you know, if all of them are not, if any one of them is updated, it's false. And otherwise, we increment the version and we add the domain event. And the version helps us make sure that we're not going to collide and create problems. So if I update the version and you go and you've got version 2, you say, hey, I've got version 2, and I say, well, version 3 is here, there's a conflict immediately, and you'll get told, no, come back. You haven't got the right version. And we'll worry about what that means later on in terms of the code. So this is said, okay, extend allowed next so that any non-backlog stats can be transitioned to backlog. Why include complete and backlog? Server supports it, and it's the same sprint clearing demotion. Complete to ready for development, to complete to in progress are deliberately not added here since the user only asked about the backlog transition. No store change required, no UI change required. I've got a feeling that it's just misunderstood me a little bit there, and I've just accepted a change I shouldn't have done. It read correctly though. We'll see what happens. We can always undo the change. That's one of the benefits here. So if we go to implementation, backlog, and we go to this, and we assign that to sprint 1. So we're going to assign introduce the screen for release management. Actually, let's not screw around with those ones. Task assigned to requirement. Let's assign it to Alan and put that into sprint 1. Oh, why won't that go? Why is sprint not selected now? Something's off kilter. Hold on. Hold on, let's see. Console. Sprint selection in the development backlog is no longer asking you ready for development. So that's an interesting one. Why that won't work now? That worked a minute ago. So did it make a breaking change? Is the question. So when I've gone with this piece, when this piece is actually done now, when I've tested this, it's not the final version. It's the work in progress version. I'm trying to make sure that the guardrails are in place, the opinions are in place to kind of help guide the flow. That's one of the things I realized is a couple of weeks ago. Like right now, it's so open. It's open to a lot of interpretation. I don't want that. I want it to be kind of opinionated as far as how do I push things through the system, right? Initiative to planning to implementation to delivery. So tightening up the task status is part of doing the delivery piece, because I can't say something is completed properly if I can't make it transition properly. So the goal is very much to get to this delivery phase where we say, now let's create a delivery. And now when tasks are in progress, we can say, okay, this is going to get released in this version. This is going to get released in the next version, etc., or this release. And a release will have a target release date. It will have a description, maybe a name, and the cards that are in there. What I might pivot to is, for a little while, is integrating GitHub into the actual application as a tool, because now I've got these tags, these references. Now I can say, oh well, this has got PRs, or this has got branches, and it's got branches in different repositories, etc. So we'll start to look at that, and then that gives a bit more richness and a bit more clarity to the design. And then as you go to get the delivery ready, if there's any outstanding PRs, it will warn you that there's outstanding PRs against these branches, against these features. And if you try and do the release, you won't have those changes, right? So I've got to be careful there how much I pass opinion, because again, that's one of the areas where I don't want to be opinionated, because I do not want to say, hey, here's how you should handle release. Because then if someone picks up the application to use it and it doesn't fit in their delivery, because that's what matters most, right? How you get to details of what you build, they can be flexed. You can change your process, but how you deliver software is a little harder to change. And if I can't support workflows, then that's going to be a little bit of a harder. It's going to be a little harder to imagine. So what we will do is, I'm just giving that a second to see if it's fixing anything there. It's really thinking hard on this one. Am I about to lose my cloud credits or something? 8% used of the week. 6% used, 4 hours until reset. That's kind of high. But hang tight, really working through this one. Interesting. Okay, pass the invalid transition, clear the sprint in the optimistic payload, apply the update in both tasks. Right, okay, so it did do it. So it did make the change. This has now broken the sprint selection somewhere. So what I'll do while I'm waiting for that to finish out is I'm going to go on to... So I had task state transitions, and I branched off task state transitions to get rid of mass transit, right? So I'm just going to merge that and delete the other branches. That's the way I'm going to handle this. Bit of a bigger change than I want to, but it's fine. I'll do that. Summarize that there. That's on foundation, so that's a pretty tiny one overall. Again, I branched off of a branch, which is not ideal, but it's fine. Okay, the issue is that the sprint disable enable calls, when applied via the value changes subscription during the populate form, they don't reliably propagate to the sprint select components view. Is disabled as a plain class field, and set disabled state doesn't mark the view for check. Let me simplify. Clear the sprint value when moving to backlog, but never disable the control. There we go. Okay. So now if I go to here, I should be able to select sprint one. Nope. Nope. It's still working on that one. We'll give it a minute. Hmm. Remove the sprint disable enable logic from the task detail panel. The sprint control canal stays enabled at all times. That's going to break it again in a different way. Root cause is disabled as a plain class field, not a signal. When the status change description called sprint disable on the backlog task, then later sprint enable when you switch to a ready for development. Set disable state update the field, but didn't mark the view for check. So the disable binding on the underlying P autocomplete stayed true, and the control remained visually functionally locked. Fix subscription now only clears the sprint value when status moves to backlog. No disable enable calls. Populate form no longer toggles the sprint's disable state. The correctness guarantee for backlog has no sprint still. So if we go to a backlog item, that shouldn't happen. And that's not even working properly. Oh, that's interesting. Or is that because of the team it's assigned to? So that's still not working. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain a little bit, right? So I have now, because I've made two sets of changes, I could undo the changes and get back to what I had, which is probably the smartest thing to do, I think. Except I didn't. Is that one I'd actually committed? I'd missed that commit. So let's do it this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain the behavior here. So when a task appears in the backlog, it should only appear in there if it is in a. Actually, we need to correct something on the server side, I think, there. Let's do that first. So a task from the view perspective, go to queries, query tasks, get tasks. Do I use a filtering? I might use the filtering on the other side. Yeah. When a task appears in the backlog, it should only appear in there if it is in a ready for development or backlog state. Um, um, a task that is in a backlog state should not be have the ability to assign to a sprint. We have to move it to ready for development first. Once we assign it, it should not appear in the backlog and instead should appear in the ready for development column in the sprint board. If while in the sprint board, I move the task back to backlog, we should also remove optimistically so in the Kanban view. That's kind of conflicting information. I'm saying Kanban sprint view, which is two completely different concepts. Should be able to move a task back to backlog regardless its current status state. But when a task is in the development backlog, you can only ready for development and back. Please. So what I've said there is, hey, a task appears in the backlog when it's backlogged or ready for development. That's the only time it should appear. These complete shouldn't appear here. And I think what's happening is, when I looked at the server code, then is I'm probably using the fact that GraphQL allows me to filter to say, here, get these, get, where there's no sprint attached, which is probably why the completes show here right a second. So if I'm in a backlog state, Tony, hello, how you doing? If I'm in a backlog state, I can't assign a sprint. If I'm in a ready for development state, I can assign a sprint. Once I assign a sprint, it disappears from this board and should appear on the boards. When I click on that column, on that card, then it should work. So here we go. So rules, dev backlog visibility, only tasks with no sprint and status in backlog ready for development belong to the dev backlog. Backlog status, no sprint. While in backlog, the task cannot be assigned to a sprint. User must first move it to ready for development, then pick a sprint. Once the sprint is assigned, the task leaves the dev backlog and appears in the sprint board, starting in the ready for development column. Sprint board to backlog from any status, the user can drag move to backlog. Client must optimistically clear the sprint. Server does this too. Dev backlog transitions, only backlog and ready for development. In progress complete are never options in this view. Status check versus what's in the tree. It's got the tests. It's determined nothing's to undo, it's just got to tighten some things up. And it's got some things to edit. There you go. You're frustrated. I'm hot, I'm warm. The weather here is kind of warm right now and I don't have any fans or anything available to me. So yeah. But I'm gonna go to karate in a little over an hour, so I figured I'd get streaming. So I keep my schedule somewhat on path and go and completely exhausted and sleep like a baby. What's frustrating you right now? One of the things I'm contemplating is with this is what happens if once I've got all this kind of tested and the backend code's fine, if I capture some sort of document as to how things should behave and then feed that into Claude again from scratch and say, use these technologies, use these techniques, go build a system from the ground up. I wonder if it creates something cleaner. And what you just saw there is it applied the filtering. So my bet is if I go to the GraphQL side of things now, what we'll see is projects. What we'll probably see, user and tenants, user profile, query projects. That's projects, that's not tasks. There you go. It's kind of nasty, but Getting Docker to behave and build me a friggin' FFmpeg binary for all platforms. Oh no. There's no filter in there. That's weird. I get the caching layers to be reliable so I don't have to wait the full 3 hours for a small change. Yes. Yes. I know it's not quite the same, but my changes to my libraries for Kafka and stuff the other day were because NuGet's caching is random. So I ended up basically using GitHub as a temporary NuGet cache. So I've connected a source here now, so I can connect to I can use that for pulling changes. I know it's not quite the same thing, but caching is frustrating. Okay, so now I should be able to go to this backlog item. Random fine. Oh, it completely removed the property now. I don't have the option of doing that. Why are you not actually selecting? You. I like that we don't allow a backlog item to have a sprint selection. Why doesn't so these tasks these are assigned to a team. So right by default it's showing every team's tasks, which means this breaks a little bit. But ultimately when you go in here as a user, you'll only be able to see tasks that are associated with projects you're on. I believe that's why I want to do it. So all tasks for projects you're associated with will show here, and then you can filter it down to your team. So as a task is assigned to your team, you can see that, but you'll be able to see other tasks from other teams. I'm also not making things easier on myself with all the fancy requirements I have for my FFmpeg. Yeah, yeah, I can see that. But this is doing this is allow me to see some of the flaws in the data design in the way that I'm joining things together. Like to me, the visibility is what matters, right? So that's why I'm saying, oh well, you're on a team. That team is assigned to projects. So when a task is created for a project, you should see it no matter what team you're on because it's assigned to the project first, kind of. Right? So the team doesn't matter. So when any team matters in here. Here you notice there's no team selection. So I'm seeing some of those holes appear, but I'm not going to capture all of them because I'm not using this as a team, which is kind of hard. So, yeah, rethinking some of the ideas is going to be part of this. So right now I'm watching to see what Claude does here. It's trying to identify why that drop down doesn't select a value, right? So it's the same problem. So we fixed a lot of things here, right? We don't show complete items. Awesome. That's great. We don't show the sprint drop down on a backlog item. That's awesome. But why doesn't this now select? Um, Also, I probably want to do a toast notification and close this panel. That's what I want to do when you assign a sprint and hit save. I think one of the fans in my machine As the bearings have gone, which is not good. So gonna Claude's gonna give it a whirl. See how this goes. Oh, everything I ordered today is expected tomorrow now. Awesome. So glad I ordered it for today. Awesome. Um, this is one of the least favorite features of doing like developing this way. Is I don't have the capability or the capacity to go off and try and do something else at the same time here. Um, I need this to work to move forward from what I'm doing. So when I'm using the AI for this, it's like, come on. And if I get stuck in a hole, it drives me crazy. Not that I wouldn't be stuck in a hole, right? But um, it's the least interesting part of this. At least if I was doing it myself, I'd be like focused on the solution. So we did reduce Liquid Sky by 3 projects by deleting the mass transit pieces. So there's no service bus in here anymore. There's only Kafka. Um, that's because they hardened the licensing on mass transit. So now everything's stopped because the license file was required. Um, I'm not in the position to pay $400 a month for a mass transit license. That would be a little too excessive for the 3 messages I was using it for. When we can use Kafka, so it's not ideal for me because I prefer Kafka to be a hey, here's things that have happened, and Service Bus to be hey, do this, so I can actually send commands. So now everything's kind of a reaction. I think it's just from my way of looking at the system. So I probably will look at alternatives for Service Bus stuff later and re-implement some of those commands. But it did allow me to remove some of the GraphQL stuff from the back end actually, which will be failing on the client. I need to remove that afterwards when this is working properly. It's really struggling with this one. There you go. There you go. Just in case. Oh, that stream ended. Shouldn't satellites be streaming? Oh, okay. I was really hoping because this was kind of working nicely. I was really hoping that this would be just a, hey, look, it's done. Let's review it and move on. And it's not. It's not going to be that way, is it? It's just going to be difficult for me. Remove the communications infrastructure viewing dependencies and configuration related to these projects and introduce a new receiver for user change notification. Delete all source files and configuration from communications. Yeah, that's that. I don't think I have any spare fans, so that bearing is going to have to hold on for a few days. At least AI hasn't driven up fan usage. That would be a fan prices. That would be most disappointing. Oh, good job. Good job. Task. Um, task. Status alignment. You shall get there. I haven't seen Claude take this long to do stuff before. This is very strange. Like, it's taking a long time. 9 minutes for this? Kind of stuck now because I need that to behave before I can do these PRs and merge it. So it's still struggling. It's most perturbing. Nope, not that one. Backlog. We use this tab. So what I'm trying to get to here is I'm trying to get through this task model enhancements piece of the system, right? So the state lifecycle hardening is this: update the task UI to reflect valid transitions only, add state transitions validation to task API, define and document allowed state transitions, right? So we've got that done. Task unique reference, we got that done, and task direct dependencies. This will be the next piece. This is kind of an essential piece because it should indicate you have a dependency on other tasks so that you don't take them in the wrong order. That would allow us to, at least for the time being, implement some level of priority here. Like, this depends on this, this depends on this, this depends on this. So that's kind of the next piece of this. But like I said, getting the GitHub integration would be kind of good, because what I'm going to do with the GitHub integration is you're going to go into the organization management, right? So again, only I have access to, the idea is only I have access to certain things. So we'll have a system management thing in here, and then put a permission around it, and then be able to link a GitHub organization to the project, and then put the webhook in place. I'm not sure how that's going to work from a testing perspective. I'll have to see. I don't quite know that answer yet, because I'm pretty sure you can't communicate to localhost 4200. So either I'm going to have to bring up a tunnel and provide it access, or I'm going to have to poll something. I don't know yet. Actually, that's a good question. I can start that question right now. If I wanted to, when PRs and branches were being made, with the link. Reference identifier. How would I do that? And how would I test that locally? Is it a pull in GitHub? Because I can't imagine it being me polling GitHub. That would be messy, right? Okay. So task detail panel swapped if can assign sprint for div hidden not can assign sprint. Why this should fix it with if Angular destroys ls sprint select when status is backlog and recreates it on every toggle back to ready. Each recreate re-registers the control value accessor against the same sprint form control. Depending on timing with PrimNG's p-autocomplete internal state, it uses model selected on a freshly created signal. The first click selection can be swallowed before the new CVA is fully wired. With hidden, the ls sprint select is created once and kept alive, just visually hidden when status is backlog. Yeah, that makes sense, I suppose. So now we go here, hidden. Go here, it shows. We go here. Don't think you're getting it. It's not erroring. Hold on. Let's reload. Let's do exactly what it told me to do. Reload. Actually, let's do this a bit more convincingly. Let's restart the actual Angular piece. I have hit mistakes with this before. So it could be that I'm missing other things. Okay, that's restarted. So let's refresh that. Let's see if it behaves. Okay, so we go here, sign sprint one. There we go. Okay, so now when we save that, that should disappear. Okay, awesome. We go here, we can't select the sprint. We go here, we can select the sprint. Click on a ready for development task. I'm trying to tell it to be better and seeing if it tweaks it a little bit. Like you're focused on front end testing. Please review this with a keen eye towards what we might actually do differently. I do not want to keep going around in circles fixing this. It is quiet in here today. And the only two people who have been in here are in Europe and are at like 11:30 and midnight. That's kind of crazy. I was genuinely hoping this would not be this. I was genuinely hoping I'd be able to move towards analyzing those requirements. But let's have a look and see how the GitHub integration thing. So GitHub supports both approaches, but webhooks are the standard for this kind of real-time linking. How it works, you register a webhook on your GitHub repo. GitHub sends an HTTP post to your endpoint whenever events occur. Pull requests, create branches, push, etc. The payload includes branch names, PR titles, bodies, and commit messages where would typically embed a reference like CAS1234. Polling the API is also possible via the GitHub REST GraphQL API, but it's rate limited, delayed, and wasteful for real-time linking. Webhooks are the way to go. Local testing, this is the key question. GitHub needs a public URL to post to. Two common approaches. SME.io, GitHub's own recommended proxy. You create a channel at SME.io, point your webhook there, then run SME client locally, which forwards payloads to localhost your port 0config. Or ngrok, exposes a local port. So let's go and look at SME.io. Start a new channel. Way. Ah. So then you embed that in your application? So do I have to create like a proxy server to begin with? You don't embed SME client in your .NET app. It runs alongside as a separate process. The flow is GitHub, SME channel, SME client. Your .NET service just exposes a normal HTTP endpoint that accepts the post. It doesn't know or care that SME is proxying. Okay, so you start up a SME client. Oh, there you go, target. Right. Oh, okay, I feed it off into that. And then ultimately I'd set that up as, okay, fair enough. Then we shall look at using Shmee. Shmee. Shmig. In your Aspire setup, you could even wire this up as an executable resource in your app host so it starts alongside everything else during local dev. Yeah, let's see how that works. So then, but do you have to change that every time, or do you? Like, that's it. Like every time I go there, it's going to give me a different URL, which is fine. Then set the what proxy URL, but then okay, so source control integrations. That's cool. That's workable. I can use service discovery. Yeah. You really need to get your automatic contract. I don't care. Am I the biggest thing on this screen? Like, I'm so sorry you just have to deal with me. It's fine. I'm in the dark room. This is the only light I have. I'm not messing around with key lights. I'm not messing around with any of that. It is what it is. It washes me out. I know that when the brightness comes on. But hey, it's accurate. It's fine. Broadcast. What would I even do there though? That's the point. Broadcast cam. Yeah, I don't even know what I'd even change there to do that. So messing around with that. Okay, so that's cool. But don't worry, I won't bring Smee back anytime soon. Only adds me in development, not needed in production, so that webhook service would just start as part of Kaizu source control. Okay, nice. And then we get GitHub events. How does okay? So I'm just verifying that once I get that channel from Smee, I don't have to do anything else. I could just use that going forward. The channel is permanent and static. It's just a random URL path like that. Once you create it, that URL is yours forever. There's no auth, no expiry, no account. So add your executable config with the URL hard coded. It's stable across restarts. Okay. Since there's no auth on the channel, anyone with the URL could theoretically see your webhook payloads. That's fine for local dev, but it's why you'd still want to validate. Gotcha. So we'll just close that down for now because I'm not going to use that one. So, yeah. This is ridiculous. Stoney, have you noticed this Claude taking so long? This is still going. It's been another 7 minutes on trying to figure out why it can't select sprint twice in a row. It's not like the context was too big. I was doing stuff yesterday with this that was taking far less time. There you go. There's the explosion of code. Yeah, that's awesome. So, okay. Let me dispatch an explore agent to verify my understanding of the state flow before writing the plan. Huh. Whether or not overutilize your region is. Maybe. Maybe. 20% used in my current session. That's unusual. Oh, they took my $50 away. I had $150 of extra usage and it's not using it. They took the 50 away. That expired. Buttheads. Gotcha. Well, I've never seen it take this long for something so simple. I mean, okay. Normally I'm streaming. I'm only streaming this time of day once in a while, but I'm normally coding at some point. So this is a different task. Diagnosing a state persistence bug in sprint selection across task switches. I need to overwrite the plan. Let me dispatch an explore agent. Oh, it's moving things. 9 minutes again though. Ridiculous. Kill it and type continue. That actually works. Resume. Nope. No, 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 no. Nope. I had not saved that as a session. It has reset the entire thing. That was not a resumable state. None of that, none of anything I've done today was there. This is fun. There we go. I didn't clear the context windows or whatever it had. Okay. Reset filter suggesting that every write values for external value changes. Accept null explicitly and normalize to undefined. Guard populate forms so it only runs when the task identity changes, not on every reference update. Prevents optimistic signal ref churn from wiping user edits on a currently open task. Also reset last populated task ID and discard changes so an explicit discard repopulates from the latest store state. Files to modify. Yes, go ahead. Interesting that it now offers you to ultra plan in the website. I don't know where that's come from. It's still running, so I don't want to rush it. But that's interesting that killing it then and just telling it to fix it. I don't believe I was 20 seconds away from an answer there. I can't have been that close. But we'll see. Watch. There you go. I can look like a ghost all the time. That won't do much. Yeah, that'll do. I'll at least try and minimize some of the flash. Please give it another go. Okay, so let's refresh this. Let's go to here. We don't have a drop down. We go here. We go to sprint 1. It selects. We hit save. That's still there. That's fine. We go here. We select sprint 1. We hit save. Nice. Okay. When we select the sprint, this task will be filtered from the backlog. We should close the panel and pop up a toast that task X was pushed to sprint Y. Let's see if I'll do that. So now, again, we go over here, we go to the sprint 1, and now we've got those things there. They don't have names or estimates, that's why they're not showing anything more detailed. We probably want to put safeguards in there. Let's make that 5. I made it so you can click these now, and then you don't have to go and click the little pencil in the bottom right corner. Delete is not available to us yet, but now we can do that, and we can do that. Probably want to make it so when you go into edit mode and then you hit save, it closes the dialog rather than no, one Alan. There you go. Right. So yeah, but now I should be able to move that. Oh, it's refreshing for me. Oh, interesting. So that happened because it's refreshed the server data, and that server data hasn't made it all the way around yet. So fun fact. Do 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 do. I'm gonna be careful here because these will update eventually. Let's take sample task. Let's assign that to. Oh no, it's not finished yet. Hold on. Let's not try and rush it. We don't want to break it even further. So what should happen is when I do this, this should disappear. Now, this is a bad one because it doesn't have its reference attached, but that's fine. I'm not recreating all the data yet. The ones with references probably will be moved. But anyway, so what will happen is when I hit assign it to a sprint, it hits save, this should disappear, and a toast notification should appear and say task blank was assigned to sprint 1. Okay, so there we go. So now we should be able to hit that and hit save. Task was pushed to sprint 1. That's testing date times. That's BE2. And this was assigned to a new sprint. So now we go over here and look at these. And again, optimistically updated, right? So these are updated on the client on the assumption that they're going to be consistent on the back end in a very short amount of time. I'm not going to bring up Red Panda because I don't want to blind everyone, but yeah. But now we should be able to see a reference appear on tasks. We could move that back to backlog. It will disappear from sprint 1, and when I go back to the backlog, should be FT2 should appear. And again, that's another problem there. So FT2 doesn't appear. It will appear eventually, but it won't appear anytime soon. FT2. So there you go. It's been moved back to the backlog. So that made it round. So that refresh will pull from the server. Dark Reader to the rescue. Can you install plugins? Yeah, I don't even want to see what that looks like on there right this second. I never have looked at Dark Readers. They're just all, especially with dev websites, they always seem to be kind of clunky. Or you get parts you can't read or use. So anyway, apart from the fact that when I set a task in the sprint to backlog, it did not show in the backlog again until the data had made the round. Yeah. So it wasn't being respected on the client. You please verify our behavior. Otherwise, what I'm trying to be careful of here is the whole send it off in a spiral. Like, I need to get this committed. You can disable it per domain or block it on your site. Meta name, data reader lock. Yeah. Kaizu supports light mode. I won't blind you because that's a whole lot of white and grey. Yeah. If you are new to the stream and you're hanging out, you're more than welcome to ask any questions, share any opinions. If you want to know more about the project, you're more than welcome to chat. If not, thank you very much for coming and hanging out. I appreciate it. This is TBD Stan's looking at a computer, working on doing his work for him. Yeah, did I commit? I did not commit this. Okay, so these were things that need to go. Okay. Refactor task behavior method update timestamp handling and remove occurred on. So push these changes. We're almost good. But I think what I'll focus on tomorrow morning is, if I'm being realistic, what I should focus on is getting through this, right? So GitHub integration is one of these pieces. Task model enhancements, if I can do this, then this entire deliverable is actually done. Done as in it functions. So display dependency 1 is on task view, incomplete dependencies flagged, build dependency selection on task detail, and build task dependency model, direct links, stored as relationships, etc. So this is a task can declare a direct dependency on one or more other tasks. Dependencies are informational, surface as warnings, not hard blockers. So I can move a task to a sprint, but if there are tasks that task depends on and they're not in the sprint, I should warn. And then similarly, when I'm looking at the release side of things, I want to be able to say, by the way, these 3 items have been done. However, these tasks that are dependencies are not done. So you can release, but you're going to miss some things. So I'm not going to make it. I'm going to make it to help them review what they need to go and look at and decide. Oh yeah, we can actually release this. I'm not going to outright block it. Right? It's going to be a choice. Which will be fun. I just kind of want to tidy this one piece up because I think it will be very valuable to have it working nice and neatly. Again, the more I come to add these features in, the more unlikely I am to catch these scenarios because I'm not using it as a team, which is a downside to developing a piece of software. By the way, it's a header that blocks dart reader from touching your site. Nice. I can see why that would be important, especially in a site that offers light and dark mode, to make sure that you've got consistency. So if someone comes into your site, they get presented with, the way it should look. So I probably will. We'll see if we want to do that. Yeah. I used to change my colors when I offered dark mode by default and made my app ugly. Yeah, because it will screw with what's there, right? So yeah, from a consistency perspective, you got to be, know what you're delivering. Oh, that reminds me. Oh, the puppies. The puppies are fine. They are eating a lot. Um, they're coming up on their third birthday, which is kind of scary. Thank you, Pimiku. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. So I like watching Diablo game and some random other games such as um, Hollow Knight, etc. Pimiku's stream is a really great stream to go and hang out in. By the way, nice and chill. Just gameplays and chat. Chat can go anywhere, but very good place to go and hang out. I need someone who would always celebrate his dog's birthday. I'm just not doing an explicit shout out because that's kind of I want it to be triggered. I know somebody who would always celebrate his dog's birthday with a dog or pie. Yeah, we celebrate their birthday. They have a musical birthday cake that they get to play with, and then new toys. So, and they eat enough food anyway, so I'm not giving them a specific pie. It's driving me crazy tonight. But yeah, they get their birthday celebrated. It just does not want to do anything this evening. It's like, well, I'll just take my sweet time. Another 7 minutes. 812 tokens though. Post a video, I promise. I'll mute it though, so you don't hear me singing happy birthday. Oh, here we go. It's kicking into gear now. 1,000 tokens. You can't type continue. Oh, there we go. Didn't knew I was talking about it. Continue is not a thing. Resume is a thing. Okay, there we go. Continue is an alias for resume, which will resume your session. But being that I haven't saved this session, it doesn't have that context. So resume does nothing. I can't use resume. So what I did before is I just said, I hit escape, and then I said, can you fix it now, please? And it did it. Oh. But yeah, it's now at 8 minutes 20, 1.7k tokens. It was not building it wasn't building much. It was literally 7 minutes. It got to 900 tokens, so it wasn't even scanning very much. So something's not right. Surly, hello, how you doing? Welcome in. Doesn't even acknowledge that I even said it. Just proceeds where it left off. Huh? Yeah. Slash continue is not a thing. Or continue, maybe. The task interface declares sprint and GraphQL returns null. Okay, let's see if this works now. So if we go and refresh, go here and then select a sprint, task PHX3 was pushed to sprint 1. Let's go back over here now and do sprint 1, PHX3. Let's edit that and switch it back to backlog. Save. No. You know, one of those days where you just want to throw your computer in the bin. Refresh, there it is. So that's pulled from the server though. So that's done the round trip. So the good news is that Kafka's up and running properly. The bad news is that's weird. Okay, so I'm going to move on from that. We're going to do that. We're going to do that. That's fine. That's fine. What I'm telling it now is to go off and capture a to-do. So I'm not willing to sit here, keep going back and forth over this. I think it's going to be more detrimental to the product. Keep going in that path. I can fix that later, right? It's not a use case I need to panic about right this second. So I've said, hey, capture a to-do, keep it as an eye on it on testing, and when we come back around to this, we'll review it later. So for now, what I need to do is push that branch and get that merged in, and then we get back to a good point. Task stats alignment, create pull request. You can do that now. So now we have liquid sky. Do that again. Summary. I mean, the rewarding thing for me here is this is starting to look more like a thing, right? It's starting to take shape, and the ideas are starting to come through, and it feels more like a product by the day, which is a nice feeling. Up until recently, it did feel very much like a random set of pieces that I was just trying to stick together. But then, as I've been able to tighten up some of these things, go through this, and again, I'm using Claude to do a lot of validation with, to have a discussion with, as far as here's my idea, validate it, help me, don't just confirm, etc. Make sure that we're going through this process of should we be doing this, why are we doing this, all these things, and I think it's helping me harden my vision of it. And Mammoth, how are you doing? How are things? Welcome in. So today's been quite a productive day in terms of development for the product. I've done a lot more than I expected. What's a weird hover effect? That? Or back in the initiatives one? Like that? Considering I'm trying to move towards a more consistent design overall, I'm going to end up with weirdness like that. When I go back over the screen, I'll review that stuff. I've been going home, my JSON schema document editor, tossed a bunch of stuff, tightened up the core abstractions, and now I'm almost back where I was. That's the way it works, right? Yeah, so it's more, but if you look at more like, no, not that one. Release management, task model enhancements, these. Not so much a component library. So what I've done here is I have in Figma, I've created a document to have all the colors and all the styles and stuff started to highlight. And there's an interactable version with that. So this is actually a style. So I just haven't back applied it over that one. Also, there's a dumb icon as well. What does that mean? Because it doesn't open a new window. Don't know why it decided that was an icon that was necessary. So, but I'm not going to keep going back over those things and trying to change them, because every time I do that, I get distracted and I introduce new code and I end up with a PR. or a merge that is more things than I wanted to do. So yeah. So what I do is what I've been doing is once I get enough progress made and something looks good, then I go and have it analyze um, what I've done and build the style sheets out. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, see, this one's not the same either, but it's not darkened, it's lightened. It's darkened, not lightened. So we'll see. I'm trying to figure out what I like as well, so I don't mind. How do you .NET types make HTML component type stuff? How do you .NET types? I do. Yes, I know that one. Yes, the dashboard. Yes, that's frustrating. That's after I told it to pad it. It actually was also um, lacking precision as well. So this used to say 50.666666667. So yeah. Um, again, the dashboards are there to hold right now, right? I'm not getting. This is why I'm using Claude for a lot of the front end stuff because I hate playing with those sorts of things. I'd rather get it to a point where it's functional and then review it and then kind of create a style guide off it and then have it review everything else and make it consistent. So screen by screen, which is what uh, this is meant to do. Because I noticed there was font size differences, there was panel differences, there was behavior. So overall, it doesn't do too bad, right? So if I go into here, this screen looks similar to this screen, similar to, right? They have a semi consistency to them right this second. So as I add more data, as I add more process, then they'll be easier to see. So, um, yeah, these I want to click and bring up the details of. That doesn't work yet. Again, because these should be controls. It's in terms of components and stuff now. I don't know. I mean, this is using Vue. Um, this is just a complete Vue. No, this isn't Vue. This is Angular. Sorry, no, Vue is the game library. So this is using Angular, and it's just a complete front end on top of the API. So from the .NET side, it's just the back end. There is no HTML components to the back end pieces. If you were doing .NET full through, use Blazor, then you're building components and stuff like that in code. I personally don't like the blur of server and client. I don't use Blazor. Don't like it. Okay, so today I have done way more than it looks like. I removed mass transit from the system, so I no longer have a service bus and Kafka. Right now, I am only using Kafka. I don't like that because when I do want to send commands, like send an email is a command. It's not a, by the way, an email is available. You should send an email if you see this, right? I don't want to broadcast that. I want to send that specifically to something that understands, hey, I'm being told to do something, right? Um, so um, so I removed mass transit. That's completely gone now. And because that just all of a sudden turns over to, you need a license. I think I updated a minor version as well. That was the most frustrating thing. Um, I knew it was coming, but I'm not spending $400 a month on a mass transit license for 3 messages. I'm not going to worry about, service bus versus Kafka right this second. Later on, I can review that. I can change that. And that's kind of, again, why I keep practicing this. Hey, I can make big changes in my application, in the design, in the structure, in the tooling, and still have a working application. The only thing I did bad here is I branched off a branch. So introduce task sequential identifier, task state transitions, remove mass transit. They're kind of based off of each other ultimately. Oh, we announce. No, we're out of ads. That doesn't mean anything though, I suppose. Um, I did Angular before V2 came around, abandoned it when they forced TypeScript, then Vue.js didn't keep letting me use CoffeeScript either. CoffeeScript, that was weird. That was a strange time. We did some CoffeeScript. Um, in my previous place, we built an application on Angular 1.6 or 1 point whatever it was, 1.3 at that point when we started it, because 2 was so far away that we couldn't trust that they would do things. But we did trust that they would allow us to upgrade, and yeah, um, so that went well. That's still on Angular 1.6. But yeah, so for right now, because I wanted to get progress made on this, Angular this is all Claude at this point. I mean, my original code's in here, but it's very different to what it was. So even going through this is a little bit harder. But yeah, components, make modules. Shared components, like the reference label. This is this is the this. So when you hover on this, you click it, you can copy that reference. So then you can go and create a branch and use that reference. That's an experiment in that. So um, yeah, but there are the estimate labels, etc. So there are components in here. Um, yeah. So yeah. Anyway, stop that running. Let's do that. Let's do that. Come on. Okay, so now we should be able to check out development. Should be able to check out development. I built an Angular app back in 1.22, I think it was. Simple search and view app for the business analyst to browse business logic from the case management system without having to questions. I've never, I know Angular gets a lot of hate, especially from the React and the Vue people, but to me, I like the way it works. I like the way you design things in it. And yes, there's a lot of complexity, but no matter what framework you choose, you're going to find complexity, right? So, um, yeah, it just makes sense to me. Um, they're all building off each other's concepts and ideas and improving things where they think there's a hole. I never liked the whole React thing, the whole like the component layout, the code mixed in there. I know you can do some things differently, but that's the way that was presented to me, so it turned me off using that. Angular, I like that I can have the code and the HTML and the CSS as separate files that are so I can think of them and treat them in different ways. Um, yeah. Um, any React tutorial I went through was not something I enjoyed. Um, so I don't like having code and markup mixed together. It's just it just maybe it's just my brain doesn't work with it. I don't know, but I always struggle with it. So yes, update that. So they're all merged. They're all gone. So I didn't delete the branches. This is a good time. But it's not template that's within code. It's code within the template. Yes, I like that. As minimal as possible. Like there are code in here, right? These template files they do have code in it, but it's minimal, and the HTML is most of it. I don't like the functions being in here and the markup being in here and all those sorts of things. And that's again how I've had um, React, etc., presented to me in the past. So yeah. So if we do delete, does that delete remote? No. Delete that one. Delete the remote branch. fine. I deleted that one. Then we go over here. So this is actually two branches together. So foundation and liquid sky both live in here. So now we can do remove, delete that one, delete that one, delete that one, and delete that one. Yep, that's fine. Delete. Clean it up. Clean it all up. Yep, and that actually updated the GitHub UI at the same time. That's fun. Yep, they all updated. Okay, cool. So, unfortunately for me, that is all I have time for today. I will be back tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Eastern. I'm getting back into my exercise, so I have a karate class to go to, which is good for me, right? To get some exercise, get some time away from a computer. I think it works out because you're supposed to make actual complicated things in raw TS-file, so all the code in the template should just be template wiring, which takes it out of code realm and into wiring realm. Yeah. I mean, it's partially why I'm also willing to let Claude take over on the front end side of things for this, because this project is hard enough as is with all the server side pieces that I want to do. At least if it can accelerate me through that piece and I don't have to learn it or get stuck in it. Because I do obsess, and like Stoney pointing out inlining things and stylizing things and changing colors and stuff, I obsess over those things. So I don't like doing that. So to me, it's better if I just do it as a pass later on than it is for me to focus on them, because I'll get really obsessed on the button being, like that padding on the bottom of the thing. If I focus on that, then I'm going to spend time trying to fix that. So yeah, but we'll get there. But anyway, I'm going to go and do some karate. Hopefully make it through karate class. I will be back tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Eastern, as I said. Is there anybody to raid out to? Let's go to JD. I'm going to have to raid and run though, so please, apologies. JD is working on his AI personal assistant. So, yes, I will enjoy my chops and karaters. Thank you very much for joining me. You don't got to convince me. My project resembles Autumn Stuff 5 visual for that exact reason. Good. So please make my apologies. I got to run. I will be back tomorrow. And yeah, so JD does dev. And yeah, thank you very much for joining me. Take care. Have a great rest of the evening. I'll see you soon.